Okay, so it is saying the stream is healthy. I've just realized there's no audio and it looks like it's okay. So it looks like the audios are back now. I have turned off and restarted OBS to because it looks like I've put the mic in after I started OBS and it didn't pick up where it was, but it's my fault for not picking this up earlier. I'm going to check some things just to make sure. So apologies for this. It looks like things aren't great all over the place. So, all right. Let's see if I can bring up my own stream and sort of watch myself on feedback. All right, I'll make sure I get things right. Turning off desktop audio, getting a new window going through, and it's just amateur hour going on over here. All right, so I've pulled up my own stream. I can hear it again, and okay. All right. So sorry about that. This is not what yeah. All right, there we go. Okay, well, in that case, I will do a quick recap again of what's going on. So, Hunt for Red October is a movie set in the Cold War between US and Russia, where apparently, at least according to what the Americans are being told, the Russian captain has set sail to launch nuclear missiles on America, and it's gone rogue. It needs to be stopped. So the Russians have launched the whole fleet to go and chase this captain down. It turns out the captain's actually in charge of a new model of sub that can travel silently and wants to defect. So he's going to change sides and go to America and give them the technology so that way it can try and avoid a nuclear war. And there's an analyst at the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency, who suspects he wants to defect and not launch his weapons, but the American generals and are all like, well, got to take this risk seriously. So if you can prove it, then we'll entertain it. But up until then, we will treat him as if he's coming to launch nukes at us, and we will sink him if we see him. Sixth Sense, as Bruce Willis stars as a psychologist, and he comes across a troubled kid who has had something he hasn't seen before. So the kid claims that he can see people that have died. And it's not Air Force Once, but Air Force One. Air Force One is a movie about the United States president, fictional, who's just landed in Russia to create a new peace deal after the Cold War. And on his way back, terrorists posing as journalists hijack the plane, and the president has to fight and react to it and get control back. But they want their leader, who's currently held in prison, to be released, and they're not going to let the plane land until their friend commander is released. So, sky high in this world, there are superheroes, and sometimes people, when kids reach a certain age, they develop their powers. Other times it happens more spontaneously. Let's say you might get bitten by a radioactive spider, just to say, and these kids go train at a special school, and that's so there's a bit of drama that happens there, and someone's up to no good there. Into the blue, some treasure hunters find, I think, a sunken ship with a lot of gold, except there's a few other people around that want the gold for themselves. Stealth, a advanced artificial intelligent aircraft, is being added to the fleet, but through flying through a thunderstorm, it gets struck by lightning, and things go off the rails. It becomes a bit of a loose cannon. Family Man, it's Nicolas Cage gets a glimpse into an alternate world where instead of being a rich and successful businessman but alone, I think it turns up dating. He sees the world where he's dated his high school girlfriend, and what goes on there. So, in their proposal, Ryan Reynolds and Sandra Bullock are, I think they're dating, set to be engaged, and they go to find out a bit more about each other. But I haven't watched those. So, but now I have seen one that I have watched, and it's on the recommendation list. So it's got Speed. Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock are starring in a movie set in, let's call it Los Angeles, but America. There's someone going around planting bombs, and they're looking to negotiate a ransom. There's a few things going on there. The movie starts with the bomber rigging a system up to an elevator. So initially, I think main cable's cut, but the emergency charges kick in. But the bomber's called the police and said, like, if you start a response, then I'm gonna like blow the emergencies. And yeah, the elevator's with 10 people or so in it. It's going to fall from about the 20th floor all the way to the ground. The police, Keanu Reeves and his partner, aren't really having any of this, so they rig up something to stop it from falling, unbeknown to the bomber, but a bit of drama ensues. And later on, the bomber escapes, but he then goes and plants another bomb onto a bus. Now, this bus is traveling around the city, and specifically, once the bus goes above, I think it's 60 miles an hour, the bomb will trigger when it goes under 60 miles an hour. So the Keanu Reeves fights his way onto the bus and figures out which one it is. And as the bus travels around the city, the police are trying a game of cat and mouse with the bomber. So there's quite a few bits of methods of transport in that one. This one, no, I'm just going to skip right over that one. I'm just going to, the title, there's something in the title I'm not going to mention. All right, so that's the end of to-do list number 1. So I'm going to keep this on. Then move over to to-do list number 2. I've got movies up into separate areas. Okay, so this will be a little bit easier, I believe. Days of Thunder is a bit of a sort of love story, I guess, to NASCAR, and it's a Tom Cruise film. So we initially see a race. It sets the scene with, I think, the Daytona 500, and we see like a bit of a teaser, a bit of a sugar hit, something to get the adrenaline flowing, and then cuts to the off season with the team manager approaching a former team chief mechanic and saying, "I want you to build a car," because NASCAR have evolved out of what was effectively moonshine runners. So they made cars fast so they can get the liquor from one place to another, and then they turned it into a sport. So people making up their own cars it's not as advanced as Formula One, where people can, you can't just make that stuff up in the back shed. So we get to see managers saying, we'll build a car, we're going to run a season, and they're a bit like, well, who's going to drive? And it turns out they found a driver, someone who is running in the Indy cars, or similar to Formula One with the open wheels, except that something's gone wrong over there, and now he wants to drive NASCAR. And everyone's a bit like, hang on a second, you can't just sort of like go from flying fighter jets to flying commercial airliners, or probably commercial airliners to fighter jets. And but they've booked the track. They've got someone else, one of the main competitors, one of the leaders, and they've got like car set up. So he goes for a test drive and sets a new lap record. So we set for a trackside taste of the adrenaline fueled championship with Game On. So next we've got Imitation Game, and this is a movie forgotten the actor's name, but I think he's played Sherlock and Doctor Strange, and he's joined by Keira Knightley, and it's set during World War II, where he stars as spot now, I've forgotten. This is Alan Turing, who is a grandfather or father of computing. So it's World War II is raging on. The Germans are using radio communication, and they're using a box to scramble their communications up to a point where there's many millions of possible combinations, and effectively there's an unbreakable code. And Alan Turing has joined something like MI6 to break the code and effectively be able to read the Germans' mail, and this is, it's a dramatization, but it's based off a true story and real people. Alan Turing, was an actual person. They've doing, and the machine they show in the movie, I think it's called a bomb, BOMBE, that is used in the code breaking. If it's not one of the actual machines, it's a very close replica to what's been used in the archives. So they figure out the Achilles heel and a weakness in the cryptography structure and find a way to break and read the Germans' mail. But it's a complex process, and it doesn't have a lot of believers. And with war on and materials being short, Alan Turing wants to build something that will help them get through such a large number of combinations relatively quickly. And people along the way are saying, like, this material could be going elsewhere. What are we doing this for? So it's worth a watch from a historical perspective. Looking for Alibrandi is strongly recommended. So Thea Miranda stars as Josie Alibrandi, and she's in her final year of high school, year 12, so it's just about 18. And we get to see the year through her eyes, where she goes through the challenges, sits her exams, that she wants to go off and be the Attorney General. So effectively, she wants to go study law and become the chief lawyer for the government. And we get to see her relationships, her at school and friends, and also with the family. And it's yeah, it's not all smooth sailing. So just this is one I haven't seen, but I'm familiar with the movie franchise. So the Avengers Age of Ultron, it's a movie that has, it's a superhero movie. There's Iron Man, Captain America, and Scarlet Witch, a few others that have all sort of had their own movie. And I believe it's come about, I haven't seen this one, sorry, but Tony Stark is a Playboy millionaire genius, and he has created an artificial intelligence, and similar to stealth, this one has gone rogue and tried to take over, and the Avengers have to intervene. So Master and Commander, The Far Side of the World. Russell Crowe stars as ship's captain that is very, very far from the port. I think one captain could be British and one could be French. But there's two ships out there in a region and they don't like each other. They've come to blows and they're trying to sink each other. I'm not too sure what's going on, but yeah, I've sort of seen snippets, but never really got into it. It seemed a bit sort of hard to track. Maybe I wasn't at the time. So the Wolverine, it's another one that I haven't seen. There's quite a lot of movies that are on my to-do list. And Hugh Jackman is a mutant X-Man in star in a standalone movie. He's pretty much acting by itself, but it's set in the X-Men universe. He's one of the characters there, where starting around about 1930s, but actually, if you look at the X-Men Origins movies, maybe it was about the 1700s. But effectively, as told in the first movie, the humans mutated, and some of them have special powers. So um, Hugh Jackman as the Wolverine has a extremely rapid healing ability, and he also has bone claws that can extend out of his hands, and gets into a bit of a fight often. So Coyote Ugly is a bit of an unusual uh, movie name, and it's the name of a bar. It is pretty much standing room only each week, Friday and Saturday night. It is the place to be. But I think Josie is the name of the main character in this one, and she moves to the big city, and she finds a way to work there and looks to settle into the city. She then gets effectively a family with all the other waitresses that work at the bar, and we get to see her trying to crack it as well as a singer. So she's working at the bar for a little bit of money, but her heart is set on singing. But she's got a slight problem where she can't perform well with crowd watching. So she finds a little bit of help to address this issue along the way. Definitely, maybe. I'm not sure what that one's about. It's a love story from the looks of things, so I'll have to have a look at it soon. Um, Lion King. This is another Disney movie. It's a cartoon. We're set in the plains of Africa, and we follow Simba, who is yet a lion cub who is starting to explore the world with his family and um, figure out what it's like to be part of the king of the jungle. He learns things from his family and finds some other friends along the way. So, um, another one is just called Predators, but it's from the same as in Predator and Alien versus Predator movie series. It's sort of a sequel. It's not quite the same characters aren't there except for the Predators. So the original Predator was a movie in the 1980s, about 1986, I think, and starred Arnold Schwarzenegger. It turns out a predator has turned up on Earth and is hunting people for sport in the Colombian jungle. This is a different take, but it has the same aliens in there. So in this case, the aliens have found highly skilled warriors from Earth and brought them to a planet far off in space. And we see the humans' arrival to this planet, and as they land, get their bearings, and a few of them like figure out something's up. But the penny doesn't really drop until they go to a clearing, look up, and they see like two other planets in close orbit, I think it is. And they're like, there's like no way we're home. Or and one way it could be said is that we're not in Kansas anymore, Toto. So I've got some other ones here as well. These are some more kids' movies I was meaning to recommend uh, for people just picking up English. So Kung Fu Panda is there's a few animals again. It's a DreamWorks movie, so animated, and there's a group of like I've mentioned the adventures and superheroes of different types of animals going around. And there's a quest and there's a myth of someone who is going to be a super powerful kung fu warrior. And there's an arch enemy floating around where they've got to train who this is. That's the team have come up against, and they've got to train the panda to uh, take on the enemy, the evil, evil martial artist. Surf's Up is another one, but I've seen it quite a long time ago. And it effectively is dealing with surfing penguins. So The Greatest Showman is another one I'm not too sure about. I was meaning to see it when it was published, originally in theaters, and never quite got around to it. And Hugh Jackman stars as someone who brings together from memory, it's like a traveling circus of performers. And if you go to one of their shows, there's like a very nice night of the theater. There's like magicians and different performers there. And I believe the movie's a musical. There's quite a few singing numbers in it as well. Yeah, The Three Musketeers is another one I highly recommend. So is the ones over here I'd recommend. And it's set in France in, let's call it the 1400s, where previously people have become skilled swords people, and arrows and archers and swords were typical weapons of combat. The musket is just appearing, but it's not too precise at the moment, so it's still very skilled. So the D'Artagnan is growing up. He's around about 18 years, and he heads off to Paris to become a musketeer, to go to the big city. I'm going to get trained. I'm going to be a great warrior. I'm going to do the honorable thing and be part of the king's personal bodyguard. Except that as he's going into Paris, he finds out that the musketeers have been disbanded by the cardinal, and the musketeers have, it's against the law for them to be musketeers or be shown as musketeers, but there's a few rebels who he finds along the way, and he's still got his heart set on becoming a musketeer, but these three, Athos, Porthos, and Aramis, have they sort of know something's up and they're investigating what's going on. So it's yeah, interesting take. So yeah, Final Countdown. This is one I have seen fairly recently, and if you're a fan of, say, the military, particularly the Navy or Air Force, it's sort of a bit like Top Gun. And so we start with a bit of mysterious circumstances. The aircraft carrier Nimitz has just left Pearl Harbor. It's again set in the 80s or similar, and the Cold War is still sort of kicking along, and no one's too worried about stuff going on. And the Russians do get a mention, but they're not the yeah, I'll kick on. So the Nimitz, as it leaves harbor, a storm appears out of nowhere. It's not forecast. It's not expected. It's a storm that people haven't really seen before, and it's chasing the ship down. It appears in front of the ship, and they're just like, okay, well, we've got no other choice to go through it. And they end up going through it. But once they come out of it, things are very different. They try radioing Pearl Harbor, but don't get a response. Like the ships that were just there aren't there anymore, and the crew have to figure out what's going on. And as it turns out, they've gone back in time to December 6th, 1941, which is the day before the Pearl Harbor attack. So it's put the captain in a bit of an unusual position where they could stop America from entering World War II because, well, if they still hit the Japanese before the Japanese hit Pearl Harbor, then things could turn out very differently. And so that's an interesting premise. Paper Planes. I think this is another Australian movie, and it deals with a contest of, I think, the maximum flight time. And it's a sort of science to try and get some children engaged in science and to build things and have a competition. And it, yeah, it's one I really should look into. So I'll leave that in the middle. This one is one I recommend. Bedazzled. Elliot works a relatively boring day job. It's a call center or something similar to that. And he's a bit awkward to get along with, and his colleagues don't really gel with him. And he's got a crush bad on one of his co-workers. but she doesn't feel the same. And one night in a pub, he comes across the devil, and the devil offers to a deal to Elliot. I will give you 7 wishes in exchange for your soul. Elliot was like, I mean, I get to fall in love. I get to spend life with her, and sure. So he signs up. And so, but things don't always go to plan as devil deals with the devil do. He uh, signs up. His first wish is to be rich and powerful. So the devil pretty much clicks her fingers, and Elliot is now a Colombian drug lord. Except the catch is he's about to be raided by the police. So ends up contacting the devil again and saying, like, well, you said 7 wishes. I've got to have the next one. So Elliot keeps making several wishes and ending up in several different scenarios. So, like in one of the other scenarios, he's a famous basketball player. So, uh, the Princess Diaries and Princess Diaries #2. It's a sequel. Anne Hathaway stars as a high schooler. She's, I'll just, sorry, just send some screen change. She's just going through your everyday high schooler, except that she finds out that she's a princess in a very small European country. I'm going to get this wrong. I know one of them is a Genovia or Genosha. And so it's a fictional country, and the other one is in the X-Men universe. And she starts having to go effectively through princess school. There's a bit of a fish out of water there. So X-Men, this is the very first X-Men movie. And just, we start with an introduction to, I forget the actress's name. She plays Rogue, and I think she's just a typical teenager. She's making friends in high school. She's got a boyfriend over, and as they go and kiss and things progress, she finds out that touching him is like immediately very sick. And she's found out that like anything she touches, it has an immediate detrimental impact on. And she ends up running away. Turns out she's a mutant. She's got a power where if she touches people, she then takes on their abilities. But she runs away, possibly heads north into Canada, but a remote country community where Hugh Jackman is Logan as a woodsman, and it's into fights. I think it's a set fight at a pub, and where people can challenge him, and where he makes a bit of money that way. And Rogue gets an introduction to being a mutant, and they stumble across Patrick Stewart, who stars as Charles Xavier, as a school for gifted children, because while mutants are relatively new to humans as a whole, Professor Xavier has been a mutant for quite a long time, and friends with friends. It's a bit of an interesting word. But he's friends with some other mutants, including one of his longtime associates, Eric Lensher, who's also known as Magneto. So Xavier can read people's minds and communicate with them across long distances, and Magneto has the ability to move metals with his mind. And Magneto is convinced there's a war coming between humans and mutants, and Xavier believes that the two can coexist. So Infernal Affairs. Um, this is, I'm going to call it a cinematic masterpiece, but I'm going to put it as well off to its own because Andy Lau is the director and also stars in it. But I think it's a Hong Kong Cantonese cinema. Well, there was a adaptation for American audiences in Hollywood called The Departed with an entirely different set of actors. Very similar story. But we start with two different groups, the criminal gang and the police. So the criminal gang is trying to extend its influence, and it's gotten some people very young with clean records, and they've said, we want you to go and be cops. But while you're going to be cops, you are still going to work for us. You know, if we need some things, we're going to call on you for some favors. But as far as everybody else is concerned, you're a cop, but you're corrupt. And then there's the normal police. So the two cross paths at a point of a drug deal. And people start realizing things are going funny because the cops have got someone in with the crime gang. So the crime gang realizes they've got them all. The cops realize they've got them all. And there's a game of cat and mouse between the two of them where both of them have to figure out who is on their side but not on their side. And it's yeah, the movie, once I saw about 10 minutes of it, I was like, go see the rest of it. Another one here is a TV series, Miami Vice. And this isn't a movie. It's I'm certainly going to put it over here because even though it was while it was made in the 80s, it was almost as if there was the effort put into each weekly episode was the same as a movie. And there are a lot of people who got an acting break in Miami Vice that went on to some big Hollywood careers. So the series deals with Sonny Crockett and Ricardo Tubbs, I believe, who are undercover police working in trying to catch drug smugglers in Florida. So they go on quite a few different, solve quite a few different cases. And The Untouchables is, oh, see, I feel like I'm being put on the spot. Okay, I don't know. The star of The Untouchables as I think works for the. As soon as I'll find his name and just kick myself. He works for the Treasury Department, and Al Capone is a crime boss, and I think there's in the liquor industry, he's got a finger in a lot of pies and a criminal. And a lot of people know, and there's prohibition on, so the trade and dealing of liquor is illegal, but it still finds its way into the cities and bars anyway. And sorry, I'm just going to find out. Kevin Costner is his name. And Kevin Costner stars as a Treasury official who's been given the job of finding Al Capone. And, well, everyone, similar to Infernal Affairs, there's quite a few corrupt cops in there. So he comes across an old copper, recruits him onto his team, and they find a few other people, and then go about trying to find a way to prove Capone's done something wrong because realize he's a large criminal and has to be addressed. So it's an unusual group of people, and the climax of the movie is at a train station with a yeah, I think I'm going to put this into cinematic masterpieces. I wouldn't call it essential viewing, but if it's your thing, it's certainly at the top of the list. So, Under Siege. This is set on the World War II battleship Missouri. It's a ship that's due for decommissioning. It's still in the fleet. It's been kept around as a missile carrier. It was used in the Gulf War. So it was set around, I think, 1996, but present day, according to when the movie was released. And it's due for its last cruise. Everyone knows this. There's not any world tension or anything like that. There's no World War III isn't about to break out. But I believe it's the captain's birthday, and the crew have organized a surprise birthday party, including flying in a band and a stripper. The band is actually a group of terrorists who take over the ship and look to steal nuclear weapons and sell them off to the highest bidder. Everything pretty much goes to plan, except that the chef, the captain's personal chef, is a former Navy SEAL, Special Forces warrior, who becomes a one-man army to stop the theft and bring the ship back under Navy control. Independence Day, or known as ID4, as a movie starring Will Smith, and I think Harry Connick Jr. is in there as well. And Jeff Goldblum. The world wakes up one day to find out that not only aliens do exist, they have come to Earth. There's several ships. The ships are going to each continent, and we don't know why they're here. Everyone's trying to reach out and make communication, and it turns out they're here and they're not here to make friends. They attack, and Earth tries to defend, but we are grossly outmatched. So we have to investigate and find a way and try and figure out a weakness so we can, stop the Earth being taken over, because it looks like they're coming in to strip the world of resources and then move on to the next one. Now, this is another Australian movie. Kenny works in an important industry. He works in waste management. He looks after orderloos for event management. So if you're having an event like a musical festival, concerts, like a race like Formula One, and anywhere where you need extra toilets to appear because there's a large crowd, Kenny's part of it, and he sort of normally goes unseen. So they have made a movie which is sort of like a documentary about someone who works in the industry and how things go on. Australia. This looks to be, I haven't actually seen this one, but it's I think it's got Hugh Jackman in it again. And it's an epic movie that sort of tells the story of Australia from the first arrival, I guess, to graziers and farmers, and then sort of World War One breaking out, where the sort of birth of the country at Gallipoli, but I'm not too sure exactly, and something I'll have to add to the list. But a TV series that I've also recommend. McLeod's Daughters. There's no you in it. McLeod's Daughters. So, country, South Australian, about probably 2 hours drive away from the capital, maybe 3 or 4, is a family farm. And after having several daughters, I believe Mr. McLeod has passed away. And rather than face the closure of the family farm, all of the daughters come back to the farm to keep it going. But it's set as a TV series, and it's the closest thing I could think of to seeing what goes on a farm without actually going out to a farm. So just a few more, and then I'll finish up for the evening. And sorry for being a bit disjointed. Last of the Mohicans is I'd call it another cinematic masterpiece. It's set in America, maybe 1744 off memory or something like that. But it's set during, I think it's the War of Independence. It certainly isn't the Civil War because the French are involved. And we follow Daniel Day-Lewis stars as the adopted son of a native tribesman, and his brother and his father are just trying to make their way around. They're very experienced in the woods and moving around and work on the frontier. And they find out that there's some British around. They find out that there's a tribal war party and has attacked them, and they get involved and help the British get to the fort, which they're going to, but get drawn into the Civil War along the way. It's there's some breathtaking visuals, compelling story. It's highly recommended. The Rock is named after, it's a movie named after the Alcatraz prison. So it's set in mid-90s. So the prison has well and truly closed down. It's now a tourist attraction. And one of the main characters is a former general of the United States, as a special forces commander, who feels that the government has let down the soldiers and failed to look after them, and wants to take his frustrations out. So the general attacks a chemical weapons facility, steals some very potent weapons, takes over the Alcatraz prison, and getting some hostages along the way, and lets his demands known to the American government. The American government then has to uh, get some people together to uh, take the island back over, and they get Nicolas Cage, who is a chemical analyst who I think works for the FBI, and they also find Sean Connery, who was a former resident of the Rock, who helps lead a team of Navy SEALs back in to take the place back over. So, um, Fun with Dick and Jane is a movie starring Tay Leone and Jim Carrey. And I believe after they've been fired from their jobs, they start to figure out what are we going to do what are we going to do if we need some money, and they come up with some plans to rob some banks. It's not a serious movie, and it's yeah, it's not too short. I think it was set as a comedy. The last one that I'll do tonight is Drive Me Crazy. And this is a movie that's set in high school. Melissa Joan Hart, and I'm not too sure what the other actor is. And I'm not even sure of the premise. But it's set around high school and a prom, so the formal evening of dance and presentations and similar. The last year before people go off to university or do some other things, and they people, I think neighbors become unlikely friends after. I can't remember whether someone asks someone out and then gets rejected, so eventually say, well, why don't we go with each other? And some unlikely friendships form is what I remember of the movie. So I'll wrap things up there. But if anyone has any questions about anything or anything else, leave a comment and I'll do what I can to get back to it. Again, apologies for things not being quite right. Trying to regain balance from some other things, and that the first part of the live stream that I was broadcasting without any audio and not recognizing it. So apologies for that as well. I'll try and have some other things more interesting things to talk about and present about, and have some notes and try and make the future ones more engaging. So thanks for tuning in.